Motivating your team. Theory X or Theory Y? In this lesson, we will learn about Theory X and Theory Y, and how this concept can help inform your approach to motivating your team. What motivates employees to go to work each morning? Many people get great satisfaction from their work, and take great pride in it. Others may view it as a burden, and simply work to survive. This question of motivation has been studied by management theorists and social psychologists for decades, in attempts to identify successful approaches to management. In the 1960s, social psychologist Douglas McGregor of MIT expounded two contrasting theories on human motivation and management: the X theory and the Y theory. The theories look at how a manager's perceptions of what motivates his or her team members affects the way he or she behaves. By understanding how your assumptions about employees' motivation can influence your management style, you can adapt your approach appropriately, and so manage people more effectively. Let's look then at the differences between the two. Theory X assumes that employees are naturally motivated and dislike working, and this encourages an authoritarian management style. According to this view, management must actively intervene to get things done. This style of management assumes that workers avoid responsibility, and need to be directed, have to be controlled, forced, and threatened to deliver what's needed, need to be supervised at every step, with controls put in place, and finally, that employees need to be enticed to produce results. Otherwise they have no ambition or incentive to work. X-type organizations tend to be top-heavy, with managers and supervisors required at every step to control workers. In X-type organizations, there is little delegation of authority, and control remains firmly centralized. McGregor recognized that X-type workers are in fact usually the minority. Yet in mass production organizations, X-theory management may be required, and can be unavoidable. Theory Y expounds a participative style of management. It assumes that employees are happy to work, are self-motivated and creative, and enjoy working with greater responsibility. It assumes that workers take responsibility, and are motivated to fulfill the goals they are given. That they seek and accept responsibility, and do not need much direction. That they consider work as a natural part of life, and solve work problems imaginatively. Theory Y is a more participative management style. In Y-type organizations, people at lower levels of the organization are involved in decision-making, and have more responsibility. Theory Y expounds a participative style of management that is decentralized. It assumes that employees are happy to work, are self-motivated and creative, and enjoy working with greater responsibility. It assumes that workers take responsibility and are motivated to fulfill the goals they are given. Seek and accept responsibility and do not need much direction. Consider work as a natural part of life and solve work problems imaginatively. This more participative management style tends to be more widely applicable. In Y-type organizations, people at lower levels of the organization are involved in decision-making, and have more responsibility. This slide illustrates the principal differences between the two theories. Look through these and let's consider whether we can apply them to your organization. Theory X assumes that people dislike work, they want to avoid it and do not want to take responsibility. Theory Y assumes that people are self-motivated, and thrive on responsibility. In a Theory X organization, management is authoritarian, and centralized control is retained. In Theory Y, the management style is participative. Management involves employees and decision-making, but retains power to implement decisions. Theory X employees tend to have specialized and often repetitive work. In Theory Y, the work tends to be organized around wider areas of skill or knowledge. Employees are also encouraged to develop expertise and make suggestions and improvements. Theory X employees tend to have specialized and often repetitive work. In Theory Y, the work tends to be organized around wider areas of skill or knowledge. Theory X organizations work on a carrot and stick basis, and performance appraisal is part of the overall mechanisms of control and remuneration. In Theory Y organizations, appraisal is also regular and important, but is usually a separate mechanism from organizational controls. Theory Y organizations also give employees frequent opportunities for promotion. Employees are also encouraged to develop expertise and make suggestions and improvements. Although Theory X management style is widely accepted as inferior to others, it has its place in large-scale production operations and unskilled production line work. Theory Y style management is suited to knowledge work and professional services. Professional service organizations naturally evolve Theory Y type practices by the nature of their work. Even highly structured knowledge work, such as call center operations, can benefit from Theory Y principles to encourage knowledge sharing and continuous improvement. Your management style is strongly influenced by your beliefs and assumptions about what motivates members of your team. If you believe that team members dislike work, you will tend towards an authoritarian style of management. On the other hand, if you assume that employees take pride in doing a good job, you will tend to adopt a more participative style. Do you work most effectively when your boss controls every part of everything you do? Or would you prefer a boss who helps you to do your best, increasingly trusts your judgment, allows you to use your creativity, and step by step gives you more control over your job? Different members of your own team may have different attitudes. Many may thrive on Theory Y management, while others may need Theory X management. You will find the brief self-assessment in your manual which will help you determine whether the Theory Y or Theory X approach is dominant in your organization, and help you identify any changes you might want to make. Now think about how you like to be managed. First, describe your experience with Theory X management. Was it effective? How did it affect your motivation, or the motivation of the people around you? Next, describe your experience with Theory Y management. Was it effective? How did it affect your motivation, or the motivation of the people around you? Write your answers in your manual. Now, think about your team. Consider the context factors listed below, and which theory is dominant in your organization. Ask yourself, could we do it better? Write your response and improvement ideas in your manual. Under Theory X, the firm relies on money and benefits to satisfy employees' basic needs, and once those needs are satisfied, the source of motivation is lost. Under Theory X, people use work to satisfy their lower needs, and seek to satisfy their higher needs in their leisure time. But it is in satisfying their higher needs that employees can be most productive. McGregor makes the point that a command and control environment is not effective because it relies on lower needs as levers of motivation, but in modern society those basic needs are already satisfied, and therefore no longer act as motivators. From this reasoning, McGregor proposed an alternative, Theory Y. In a Theory Y approach, the firm can do many things to harness the motivational energy of its employees. Firstly, if firms decentralize control and reduce the number of levels of management, each manager will have more subordinates, and consequently will be forced to delegate some responsibility and decision-making to them. Secondly, broadening the scope of an employee's job adds a variety of opportunities to satisfy their ego needs. Thirdly, consulting employees in the decision-making process taps into their creative capacity and provides them with some control over their work environment. And finally, having the employee set objectives and participate in the process of evaluating how well they were met. If properly implemented, such an environment can result in a high level of motivation, as employees work to satisfy their higher-level personal needs through their jobs. There are a number of activities to complete for this unit. Take the time to complete these in your manual. In this way, you will better learn from and retain the knowledge covered in this unit. Thank you for watching this lesson. We hope you have found it useful. Would you like to learn more? Visit our websites to view our range of courses on the principles of management.